In Korea, the family kimchi recipe is passed on from generation to generation, much like an heirloom. I've come with my auntie to meet her friend, who's locally famous for her kimchi recipe, so I can learn from the best.
It's true. So big.
It's really big.
Yeah.
The first thing that you need when you make Korea's national dish, kimchi, is a Korean napa cabbage, or baechu.
Yeah, baechu.
And the first step of it is to brine it with Korean sea salt and water. And then afterwards, you rinse it and you get this. And this is the starting point of kimchi. But what makes everybody's kimchi different is the kimchi sauce. And Songsaengnim here has their own special recipe, which starts out with yuksu. But what makes it particular is her use of dried pollock here. And then you add chili powder. And Songsaengnim here grows her own chilies, and she dries them out in the sun,
color.
which is amazing. And this comes all together and makes a bit of a paste. And this paste is what we're going to rub throughout the cabbage later. And into this goes salted shrimp, plum liqueur, it gives it a good sweetness, some sesame seeds, ginger, and fish sauce, and then a whole slew of garlic. Now we have to cut some vegetables up, right? So let's start chopping.
Yeah.
And we chop everything.
To her.
Okay.
And this is mine.
Every Korean woman has to learn to make kimchi.
Yes, yes.
Right?
Yeah, they have to.
It's part of being Korean,
Yeah.
right? And I know you still make kimchi
Yeah.
for the entire family.
But it is one time in a year.
Once a year.
Yeah, once a year.
That's great. Gloves on, ladies.
Yeah.
Kimchi party time.
Okay.
You guys getting ready?
Yeah. Wow, logo.
Okay. Everybody gets their own baechu. I'll give you some more. Here.
Okay.
Right. And you spread
Yes.
the kimchi sauce on each layer.
Yeah.
So kimchi is one of the world's superfoods, and that's because it's a fermented product. And when something's fermented, it means it has all of this good bacteria in it, much like yogurt or sauerkraut. And that bacteria is a real antioxidant, and it kicks your immune system into gear. And it's always on the table. Doesn't matter what time of day or what meal it is, even at breakfast. And I think we're all done. Thank you, ladies. Thank you.
Judy.
Thank you.
Judy, you have to learn how to kimchi.
I know.
Okay, please.
I know. And we'll meet every year. We'll make kimchi together. Okay? Good.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Every country in Asia has some kind of form of fried rice, but what makes Korean fried rice so incredibly tasty is the addition of kimchi. I like to buy it in bags just like this, and ooh, you can smell that the second you crack it open, because it's really potent stuff, and this smell will permeate and infect the rest of your refrigerator. I tend to triple bag it in disposable bags, or buy it in a little jar, and this seals quite tightly, so it'll keep the smells inside. This is cabbage kimchi. I just like using scissors to cut it up because it will make my cutting board smell and stain my cutting board. So I have all these pre-kimchi rituals that I follow to keep the stain and the smells somewhat controlled. And it is Korea's national dish. It's become such a staple of the Korean diet, and people don't ever really feel that they've eaten for the day if they don't have kimchi. Just cut this up into small, bite-sized, pleasing pieces, just like that. Saute this kimchi with a little bit of bacon. You can use any kind of pork that you have lying around. Ooh. The smell of sauteing kimchi is a great love and also a great horror of mine. And my mom used to fry this in the garage also just because it does smell. But it's a good smell. You can air out your kitchen afterwards. I'm going to put a little bit more garlic, even though the kimchi has enough garlic in it. Now, fried rice really is a vehicle to use up your leftovers, but do pay attention to color. I like to throw in green things, orange things, julienne some courgettes, or zucchinis as I call them. Rough chop all the way through. You can put in any type of ingredients, any vegetables that you have. Go through my carrot, small little dice. I like to use shiitake mushrooms just because they give a great flavor, nice color. You can use anything that you want to though. Any kind of wild mushrooms, mixed mushrooms. Just clean out your vegetable drawer with this dish, it's fine. This dish really works well for day-old rice, just as long as you keep it chilled. I like it because it's a little bit drier and it makes for a better fried rice. Now it's starting to smell really good. The kimchi in this dish gives it a really great crunch so that there's a textural element that it adds, but also it gives it this deep, complex flavor. I really have to say it is all about umami in this dish. You try it once, you're like, ooh, that's different, that's interesting. You try it again, it's like, I kind of like that. And then you just can't stop eating it. I love eggs in my cooking, and Korea loves eggs too. And what I found most surprising is watching people get on the trains, and they sell eggs in the station, hard-boiled eggs, and people just eat them as snacks, like you would an apple. Definitely such a satisfying lunch or after-school snack. I could eat this entire pan, probably. And fried egg on top. Korean chives on top. And a little bit of gochugaru, or Korean chili flakes. Pepper. Can't get away from that. And this is one of the greatest fried rice dishes because of the addition of kimchi. I love to break that yolk and mix it throughout to give it a little creaminess. And I really hope that you take the time and effort to seek out some kimchi. Just buy one bag, play with it, throw it into some fried rice.
The Namdo province in southwest Korea is a paradise of fresh produce. It has everything from wide open plains for farming to a coastline providing a rich bounty of seafood. I've come to sample local dishes and help celebrate the harvest at this year's Namdo Food Festival. Each of these food tents is run by a local restaurant proudly presenting the specialty dishes of their region. So it's no wonder that nearly 40,000 people flock to this festival every year to sample the best food Korea has to offer.
And this tent is from Mokpo, where they're famous for their octopus. This just isn't any type of octopus. These thrive in the mud flats there. They literally burrow down into the ground, and the mud is so rich in minerals, it's really, really good for your skin. Oh, 감사합니다. I'm gonna give one a try now. That is fantastic. 네. This stall over here is from the Jeongeun County, and they're famous for a certain type of beef soup. It's called 삼계곰탕, and I'm going to check it out. 안녕하세요.
맛있게 드세요.
네, so this is Mrs. Ko. 감사합니다. And she's in charge of this dish. It's called 삼계곰탕, and it literally means 3 generations, and it's been around for over 100 years. It starts out with a very serious beef stock, and that's made from cows from this area called Hanu beef. That is heavenly, and I think I know their secret. It turns out that every day they never throw out the stock completely. They always save and reserve a little bit to add to the fresh stock that they're making. And that's what gives this soup such a deep and rich and complex flavor. So I think I'm probably having just a little taste of that magical stock that was invented over 100 years ago. Who doesn't love a big, hearty beef stew? In Korea, we make a great one using short ribs. And this is called kalbi, and we're gonna make kalbijim, a short rib stew. And this is made from the beef around the rib. As you can see, it's really nicely marbled, and it's on the bone, and that bone's gonna impart a lot of great flavor and also thicken the stock a bit. Now I'm just gonna salt this on all sides with some sea salt. Be generous. These can take more salt than you think. I'm gonna brown these first on every side. And Korea definitely has 4 distinct seasons. The winters are ridiculously cold and the summers are so hot. And so the food takes on that type of philosophy where the stews in the winter really hug you, make you feel cozy inside, and the soups in the summer are nice and cool and refreshing. After these have been browned on all sides, I'm going to take them out, save them for later. And I'm going to deglaze this pan with a bit of soju. It's a rice liqueur, which is the national drink of Korea. A little slick on the bottom. And the alcohol is then just going to burn off, and the soju is going to add a nice sweetness to it. It doesn't have a super strong taste, it just has a lot of alcohol in my opinion. And go the onions and ginger. Some good flavor with the ginger. Onions, ginger, and then of course garlic. And I've got 8 cloves here. The garlic I'm just gonna crush so they can release their flavor easier. I'm gonna throw my beef right back in. Another unusual but very Korean addition is apple juice. We would usually use pear juice, but apple juice is a lot easier to find. And to that apple juice, I'm gonna add a whole slew of other flavorings, like mirin, which is some more sweet alcohol. A lot of soy sauce, which is gonna add saltiness and depth of flavor. Sesame oil, really great nuttiness. And some brown sugar. Just a couple spoonfuls there. And that's gonna help the stock get really nice and caramelized and give it a great color. Some black pepper and just a little bit of salt at the end. Just gonna top this off with water so all the beef is covered. And this is the simple bit. Just cover it. Meantime, we're gonna prepare our vegetables. Got shiitake mushrooms, again, another umami flavor. Potatoes. I'm gonna add another root vegetable, radishes. These are Korean radishes, but you can use, of course, any white radish. The Korean radishes, though, do have less water, so they'll stand up better in stews like this. And I'm gonna add these small little chantenay carrots. You can use regular ones if you want to. I'm not gonna bother peeling them. And after a couple of hours, ooh, thickened caramelized stew. Give that a bit of a mix. And this is where we're gonna add our veg. And these vegetables are all the flavors of harvest and will give this stew a nice side dish that's kind of built into it. Give that a bit of a mix. So now we've got meat and a ton of veg in here. And just for a little bit of finishing garnish, I'm gonna use pine nuts, which are grown throughout Korea. I'm just gonna give these pine nuts a little bit of a toast, give a little bit of color, not too much, in a dry pan. Don't wanna burn these, so move them around quite rapidly. And the last part of my garnish is a little bit of spring onion. So you get little strips, and that I'm gonna throw right on top of my stew. Ooh. And this is a sharing dish, so I'm gonna plate it up in a big bowl, put it in the middle of the table. Everybody's going to love this. And don't forget about the toppings. A little bit of fresh enoki mushrooms, our julienne shredded spring onions, and our toasted golden pine nuts. And that is the most gorgeous winter beef stew. You see the meat is literally falling off the bones, and it's soaked up all that sweetness and salt. That is like butter and the perfect warm winter stew.
But first, for a quick working lunch, some of the best and fastest food can be found in unique streets like Noodle Alley in Seoul.
Noodles are one of the most popular, quick and easy foods in Korea. I'm here in Kalguksu Alley in Namdaemun Market, where all of these stalls serve hand-cut, or as they're known, knife-cut noodles. And as you can tell, it's really competitive for customers here. But I'm here to check out Mrs. Kim and her sisters, who've been running their stall for about a quarter of a century. It doesn't get any fresher than this. These noodles are rolled out right in front of you. So you just rock up to the counter, you sit down, and then you watch them being hand cut. 이모, 해봐서 주세요.
예, 네요.
어떻게?
이리 넣으세요.
It's a bit like rolling pasta. It's a little bit easier. My pastry skills are coming in handy here. She's watching me carefully because these have to be the right thickness and there's a certain technique here. I've never rolled something where you roll it around the pin before. I think I'm gonna let her take over now. 고맙습니다.
감사합니다. 너무 잘해요.
Thank you. Once boiled for 2 minutes, the noodles are finished with crispy seaweed, deep-fried tofu, Korean chives, and gochujang. And finally, a ladle of steaming anchovy broth. 감사합니다. And really, really, really hot. I have to slurp these to make sure that she knows how much I'm enjoying this. The noodles have this really, really great texture. You can really taste the Korean anchovies and the seaweed that they put in there and the onions. 저 잘했어요.
참 잘했는데요. 속도가 조금 느려. 과연 요리사는 요리사야.
Okay. She says I'm good, but I'm a little bit slow. I'm happy with that though. I do love eating instant ramen noodles, and the Korean ones I think are the best. They come with this great mystery freeze-dried vegetable pack, which has chilies, mushrooms, some spring onions, lots of other things, but I like using it. The instant flavorings, I tend to not use these and make my broth from scratch. And here I've got fresh chicken stock, which I'm going to add my triumvirate of Korean flavors. My gochujang, which literally means Korean chili paste. And it's made from Korean chilies. And as you see, it's got this great unctuous texture to it. And it's sweet. You can use it in marinades, or here I'm using it in my soup. I just dissolve some in there. And it's got a really nice, mild flavor to it. And then I've got doenjang, which is Korean miso paste, but it's a lot stronger, it's more fermented, and it's got a coarser texture, and it tastes delicious. And then the last one is gochugaru, which is Korean chili flakes. I love these. I'd have to say they're quite mild. Then I've got my noodles. Now, these are fried noodles. I always break them up before I stick them in, just so that they're not so long when I'm slurping them up later. Just stick them in, and you turn up the heat so they start cooking. What I love to do, this is an old college habit, is chuck these back. So good. Any leftovers in the fridge are perfect for this dish. Chicken, some frozen prawns. I'm just gonna tear up the chicken, not even bother cutting it up. And what nobody knows is the secret whenever you fly an Asian airline, it doesn't matter if it's Korean or Chinese or Singaporean, they always have instant noodles on hand. So if you can always ask the stewardess for some instant noodles, and you'll get some. And I'm gonna throw in some prawns. Those take no time to cook at all. Give this a quick mix. Let that sit, and we're gonna add our vegetables. Korean chilies, of course. Because I am a Korean girl, I do like to spice things up. And of course, color's always important when it comes to food. And even with my instant noodles, I like to make everything look beautiful. And some spinach. Get your iron, bit of a mix. I always like to put in some spring onions. Give it a bit of freshness also. And don't worry about chopping things nicely. The finishing touch, which is just an egg on top. And you can either poach it, hang it out on top of the noodles like that, or what I like to do is to stir it through, and you get little ribbons of eggs going through it. And if you get the yolk, you're extra lucky. And that's done. So the whole thing cooks really just in the time it takes to cook the noodles. It's that easy. Throw these on top. A little bit more broth. Some fresh spring onions, finely chopped. This is a bit of my late night naughty noodle snack. And I have a special technique
when it comes to eating my instant ramen noodles. I do the lift and blow because they're so hot, and then slurp. That is so good.
My auntie is taking me to one of the oldest restaurants in Busan to sample Korea's famous seafood pancake. Here it's been made traditionally for over 70 years using local ingredients by 4 generations of the same family. Peeled spring onions and chives are thrown onto a skillet, adding seafood and a little beef for richness. A batter made of rice flours and wheat flour is gradually added, and a beaten egg finishes the dish.
안녕하세요.
안녕하세요.
동네 파전입니다.
아유, 정말 맛있겠네요.
감사합니다.
It doesn't look like any pajeon I've ever had before. The square shape.
Yeah.
What kind of oil does she use to cook it in?
세 종류로 만들었습니다. 유철식이로요.
Yeah.
네.
Yeah. Rapeseed oil.
Oh, rapeseed oil.
Yeah.
Okay. How does she get the spring onions so soft and nice?
Yeah,
They're really
nice.
tasty.
Very nice. She used so just inside.
I'm tasting the sweet heart
Yes,
of the
yes,
spring onion.
yes,
Oh,
yes.
that's really great.
Yes, and then her mother is
Special recipe.
Yeah, recipe. She says it's like a pizza.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is
It's
like a pizza.
yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Pizza with everything in it.
Yes, yes, yeah. This is Korean saying. 검은 머리 파뿌리 되도록 오래오래 사세요. Yeah.
May you live a long life until your hair turns white, like the color of the root of a spring onion.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
These seafood pancakes, or pajeon, are probably one of Korea's most loved recipes. My mom used to make this all the time when entertaining guests, and pajeon is probably one of my most favorite things to make for friends. Now I've got rice flour and self-raising flour. I like to use the rice flour because it adds a good amount of crispiness to it, and I like my pajeon to be really golden brown and crispy. And I've got about twice the amount of rice flour in there as I do to self-raising flour. And I mix it with the self-raising flour just because I like to have some baking soda in there to help lift things up a bit. I'm gonna add water to this mixture. You want it to be thick, but not too thick. So adjust with water as necessary. A little bit of seasoning, black pepper, my Korean doenjang, miso paste on steroids, if you will. I'm gonna add a good amount of that in there. Almost ready. Ooh, I forgot my garlic. Grate that in, 2 cloves. All of that in there. Set that aside. Chilies. Because they're not too hot, I like to leave the seeds in. And I'm gonna use my trusty scissors, just cutting these through. Adjust according to your taste. And I like to use red and green chilies. Now, spring onions. Usually I would peel them down to the hearts and just use the sweet centers, but I kind of feel like that's a waste and I don't have time to do that. So I've got a cool shredding tool that I picked up in Korea, and they rip through it. This is awesome. And then you get really great julienne shredded strips of spring onion. About 5 spring onions, or scallions, as we say in America. And these will cook nicely. They'll add sweetness as well as flavor. They're gonna wilt down, nice texture. And we're gonna coat all the ingredients in this batter. So I've got the fresh prawns here, which have just been butterflied and cut all the way through. Dump those in. Some really great fresh scallops. And just cut them thinly so they cook about at the same time as all the other ingredients. Chuck them in. I'm just testing the oil. And when you see the oil bubbling around the batter, then you know it's hot enough. On medium-low heat. I like to make mine in a rectangle just because I think it's prettier. Not too thick, but not too thin. My mom used to make small little round pancakes, so we all had our own little individual one to eat, which is quite nice too. I think that's ready to flip. that looks beautiful golden brown. It's cooked perfectly. And while the other side is cooking, I'm gonna start on my dipping sauce. Soy sauce, rice wine vinegar, little drizzle of sesame oil, and again, our main ingredient of the day, spring onions. I'm gonna put a good amount in. This is quite a chunky and thick dipping sauce, and that's because I do want it to stick to the pancake. Gochugaru, just for some fire. I'm gonna cut this up. Korean food never has knives on the table, so everything has to be cut into bite-sized pieces before it hits the plate. And that's my quick and easy, simple seafood pancakes. These are best served when they're piping hot and nice and crispy still. Get a good swig of dipping sauce in there. That hits the spot.
Itaewon is an area of global restaurants and cafes in Seoul, where you can find everything from French patisserie to Turkish kebabs. And the newest trend to hit Seoul is Korean Mexican food. These tasty Korean-style tacos have been successfully imported from the US by 4 young Korean Americans.
This is the kind of stuff as Korean Americans, we all grew up in the States and we all grew up on Korean food. We all grew up on Mexican food, right? If you think about it, Korean and Mexican go really well together.
Yeah.
If you come to a Korean barbecue joint, what do? You put the meat in some lettuce and then you wrap it up and eat it. So it's like a little taco. The only difference is instead of using lettuce, we use a tortilla. Right?
That's great. I noticed there was a really interesting hot sauce in the kalbi one. What is that?
The samjang aioli.
That's what I was tasting. I was like, ooh, gosh, I'm tasting a lot more.
I think that ingredient right now has a lot of like potential in different dishes. You know, any kind of fermented bean paste, soybean paste, it adds just that extra, that saltiness, kind of that umami.
So what is your favorite dish here?
Probably the kimchi carnitas fries.
Okay.
So we have a French fries from America. We have braised carnitas that we braise for 8 hours on top. And then we have the sauteed kimchi, which is from Korea, obviously, with sour cream, some hot
like
sauce.
Kimchi볶음밥 top.
Almost, yeah, almost. So probably our most popular dish.
And the sour cream helps a lot too, because the spiciness, it kind of cools it down.
This is the perfect fusion dish for me. Do you guys eat here all the time?
Sid does.
Can you tell?
All right, guys, here are your drinks.
Whoa.
Cheju Sunshine.
Okay, so what is this one?
That's called an apple makgeolli. Makgeolli is actually the traditional Korean rice wine. So it adds almost like a yogurt-like texture to it, very soft, and it helps the harshness of the alcohol. It makes it land softer.
Is this your invention?
That is our Batu's original.
I love the atmosphere that you guys have created here with the perfect combination of fantastic fusion drinks and fusion food. Cheers!
Cheers! Cheers! Thank you.
I've developed my own version of Korean and Mexican tacos. But here I'm going to use some pork tenderloin. And because this is a fusion Korean-Mexican version, I'm going to start by cutting this really thinly in the Korean style. And this, because it's been partially frozen, cuts really, really easily. And that helps with the cooking time. This will be done in just minutes and also helps the flavors permeate right through. Now for the marinade. Bit of soy sauce. Just a drizzle of toasted sesame oil, some roasted sesame seeds. I like to use already ground pepper when I cook Korean food. We always use soy sauce and salt together. One doesn't replace the other. They have different types of flavors and a different level of saltiness. Garlic, just a couple of cloves. I'm gonna use gochujang, and this is gonna add not only some spice, but also sweetness. If you don't always have mirin on hand, you can substitute just some lemon and lime flavored soda. Now, this is pretty much just gonna add some sweetness. It's not gonna give the alcohol taste that you usually get with mirin, but it's a great substitute and it almost gets the job done just as good. And that is gonna sit in this marinade for up to an hour or overnight until it's ready to fry. I like to make a bit of a Korean slaw to go on top. And this is more of a fusion part of the recipe. Okay, starts out with a very hard, stubborn cabbage. And I've got a magic shredder. And this makes very thin strips. You don't need that much because this is just a topping. Some red onion, a little bit of tart green apple. I used to live in California for a few years, and back then, the two largest ethnic communities were Koreans and Mexicans. And because of that, the two cultures definitely melded together to create a very interesting cuisine, Korean-Mexican cuisine. I'm gonna add a squeeze of lemon juice. Just use your fingers as a sieve, catch the seeds. And then, because it is a type of slaw, we're going to use mayonnaise, but our Asian mayonnaise. This has a bit more vinegar, so it has a nice tang to it as well. Sour cream, sesame oil, not too much, pinch of salt, and to spice things up, some Korean chili powder. Just mix that through so everything is coated. I've got some fresh corn tortillas, which I'm just going to fry on a dry pan. And in Korea, we wrap a lot of things with lettuce leaves, making things into tacos essentially, just with a different medium. So it makes sense for us to wrap with corn tortillas also. I'm gonna saute this right up. This pork is almost gonna be done before my tortilla. Give that a flip. And that is done. Now we're going to assemble our tacos. This people are gonna love. The apple and the cabbage really lifts this to a nice, refreshing level. Can't make a Korean taco without kimchi. I love avocados. I think they're a fantastic fruit. Dollop of sour cream, a couple of tomatoes, a few garnishing touches. Wrap these up. That is a deeply satisfying taco. Fusion food at its best. And those are my Korean-Mexican pork tacos.
First, I'm exploring new flavors in Noranjin Fish Market. Even as a chef, there's seafood here I've never seen. So helping me choose what to eat in one of the many market restaurants is food writer Daniel Gray, who runs popular tours of Noranjin.
Wow, we have baby octopus here?
Yeah, we got to get a couple of them, huh? Yeah, you can eat these right out of the tank.
Oh, they're
Look.
alive.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. So fun.
Yeah,
Huh?
you got to make sure you got them all.
Otherwise, what?
The longer legs, it's like better luck.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, these are really interesting. This is
Daebul?
daebul. It means fire dog because the inside is very red,
Fire
and you
dog.
squeeze it. Daebul.
It's kind of fun. I like to play with my food. I'm a chef. We're all about playing with our food.
Right on.
Can you do that?
So this is Mr. Lee, and this is his little fish shop here. So, should we get some rock cod?
I don't know rock cod too much. What is?
Well, it's got like a white sort of flesh to it, and that one is really good for soups. Whoa, that one doesn't want to go.
Oh.
Wait. So now what he's going to do, he's going to go back there, he's going to cut it up for us,
Okay.
and then put it on a platter, and he'll bring it to the restaurant.
Fantastic. Should
Yeah.
we go eat?
Wow.
Ah.
Yeah, 감사합니다.
Thank you. 감사합니다. What is the difference between the hue, raw fish, in the Korean style versus sashimi, which is raw?
The Japanese style of doing it, they kind of sneak up on the fish and they kill it by, cutting its head.
Okay.
But they do it. They don't actually like scare the fish first. You saw how they just
Beat him.
So the muscles all tense up,
Yeah.
and Koreans like that chewier sort of texture. Just grab a piece, dip it in a little bit of the soy sauce. Very fresh.
I do love that. Really great texture. I see what you mean by the chewiness, but it's almost just like a slight bite. And you always have this Korean seafood soup at the end of eating kue. This is teeming full of vegetables, and spring onions and scallions. So this is like a Korean style bouillabaisse almost.
Yeah, pretty much.
This is the famous Mantan.
It is.
This is really, really good.
Yeah, and you know what? As it boils more, the flavor's just going to concentrate more and more. Where else can you just pick out your fish and then take it to a restaurant and have it cook it up for you?
It's true. Korean food is very healthy, and they love eating fish, and I do too. And when you have a great piece of fresh fish, you really don't have to do too much to it to bring out the flavors. And I'm going to make steamed ginger sea bass, and I've just scored them. And a trick to score them is to just pucker up the fish a bit, and then you can score it really easily, and you won't damage the other parts of the fish. And we're gonna keep the skin on just because it's gorgeous. Drizzle a little bit of mirin on. Brings out the subtle sweetness in sea bass. And don't forget to add your salt. And in order for it not to stick, I'm gonna make a little snowflake, child's play, out of parchment paper. I'm just gonna lay that on the bottom. And now for the aromatics, I'm just gonna use ginger. Don't even bother peeling it. It doesn't really matter for this recipe. Just rough chop it and just scatter it on the bottom. Garlic. Another one of those great Korean flavors. And when this steams, all of those flavors and oils are gonna go in right through the fish, and this is gonna taste absolutely delicious when it's done. And so I'm just gonna place it on my steamer. And steaming is one of the healthiest ways to cook fish. And now I'm gonna make the dressing. I've got a little bit of soy sauce and mirin, and I warm it up just because I want to dissolve some sugar into it. Always a little bit of sugar in Korean cooking, because we're sweet people. I'm just gonna whisk this up just until the sugar's dissolved. There's always garlic. Ginger, julienne strips. This recipe's all about the ginger. And a little bit of Korean chili flakes, gochugaru, because we like things a little bit spicy. And leave it out if you want to. You don't have to add it in. And we'll let that just hang out and sit to mingle. And now it's time to make my courgette base of the dish, which the sea bass is gonna sit on. I'm using a vegetable peeler. I make long ribbons like this, and they still catch the side green, so they look gorgeous when they're all rolled up like that. It adds a little bit of a gourmet touch to all of your dishes. The secret ingredient, the anchovies. There's so much flavor packed into these little pieces of fish. I'm gonna use about 3. And if I were in Korea, I'd probably use salted shrimp, something called seojet, which also is packed full of flavor. But since they're kind of hard to get outside of Korea, I'm just gonna use anchovies. Just roughly chop them thinly, and we're gonna mix those in with my ginger and my garlic. I'm gonna add the garlic and the ginger and the anchovies. And then in go the courgettes or zucchinis in my Yankee tongue. You don't want to cook them too much because you don't want them to turn mushy. And I'm going to deglaze the pan with some mirin. Now there is alcohol in mirin, so this will cook the zucchinis or courgettes right through. I love this dish. You know, we took it off the menu for a while and people basically had a riot and we had to put it back on. Now we got a steamed sea bass. Wow, I just got hit by a gorgeous smell of ginger and garlic and the mirin, the sweetness. And you always want to serve it skin side up to show off that gorgeous silverback. Chopped chives on top. A little bit of black sesame seeds. And I've got my finishing sauce. Lay the ginger pieces on. Or my Korean chili flakes. A little bit of fire on top. And that is my drop-dead gorgeous, guilt-free, steamed ginger sea bass. Anyone that I serve this dish to is absolutely wowed just by the sheer presentation of it. But then when they have the first mouthful, I love those flavors. Korean ginseng soup, or samgyetang, really is one of my go-to comfort foods. I think it should make you feel better when you're feeling under the weather. And I've developed an easy way to make this amazing medicinal soup using red ginseng tea sachets. These are pretty readily available, and inside are granules that dissolve directly into water. Pour a bunch of this to make it the base of your stock, because the ginseng here is the magic ingredient. Koreans in the morning will drink ginseng tea to wake themselves up, get their blood circulating, and get their mental activity going. Wow, I can smell that already. I'm also going to use dried ginseng root. These look quite gnarly and fun. That has that same smell as the tea. Now, these are a little bit difficult to find, but you can make this soup just as successfully using just the tea. Little pusans, baby chickens, and I'm just going to stuff these with a ginseng root each. These are all really medicinal ingredients that I'm using. Healing properties of garlic. And this interesting ingredient is called a jujube. These are Asian dates. You can find these in any Asian supermarkets. They're used throughout Asia. And they give a bit of sweetness and also color, but huge antioxidant properties in these guys. And I'm gonna add in some sweet glutinous rice, which is softer and easier to digest. My mom used to make me rice porridge from glutinous rice to make my tummy feel better. Close these guys up with a toothpick or bamboo skewers. Do use whole chickens because the bones is where all of those good nutrients come from. That'll make you feel better when you're feeling a little bit under the weather. Because there isn't a lot of rice in those guys, I'm gonna put a little bit of extra on the side in the form of a little rice package or bindle. And I put some more sweet rice that I'm just gonna wrap up in some muslin. Another little piece of dried ginseng, and a jujube. I always have fond memories of these guys because that was one of my nicknames when I was in high school. Everybody used to say Judy Joo, jujube. So this is my little fruit named after me. This rice is going to taste delicious afterwards. It's going to have the chicken flavors, the ginseng flavors, the hints of garlic. And we're going to leave that to simmer for a few hours until it's really, really soft and falling off the bones. So after a few hours, oh, that smells heavenly. Absolutely gorgeous. I can smell the ginseng. It has this great medicinal floral fragrance to it. That's something of beauty right there. Golden rice, love it. And there. This really is one of the most gorgeous soups from Korea. I make this all the time, eat it year-round, even though it is traditionally a summer type of thing. Do be careful when you're taking these out, just because they are so soft, they'll fall apart. And don't be stingy. That broth is the real ambrosial touch. Black sesame seeds, chili threads, pea shoots. Finishing touch of just a little bit of sesame oil on top. And there hasn't been any salt added to this stock yet, so I'm gonna add it now. And that is the best chicken soup ever. This is medicine for your soul, your body, your heart. See the treasures inside that I've stuffed. The rice, and the dates, the ginseng root. Oh, that is so incredibly gorgeous. I love it so much that I eat this soup whenever I'm feeling like I need a little bit of a hug.